Welcome back to the Sleepy Planet Show. Today, we are going on a slow, soothing descent into the largest, most mysterious, and least explored realm on our own planet, the deep ocean. It's a world of crushing pressure, eternal darkness, and alien life forms that defy our wildest imaginations. A place where the rules of life as we know them on the surface are bent, broken, and rewritten. As always, I hope this gentle exploration helps you drift off into a peaceful sleep, or at least helps you feel a sense of awe for the hidden wonders our own world still holds. There is a small chance, of course, that the strange and beautiful secrets we uncover might be too fascinating and keep you awake. But if that happens, at least you'll have learned something truly extraordinary about the planet beneath our feet. Before we begin our slow dive into the abyss, I'd love it if you gave this video a like and maybe even subscribed if you haven't already. It really helps this sleepy little channel grow. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Are you cozy in bed in a coastal town in Norway, listening to the distant sound of the sea? Or are you on a couch in a desert city like Phoenix, dreaming of water? Let me know in the comments. It's always such a joy to see the sleepy science community scattered gently across the globe. Now settle in, get comfortable. You don't need to remember any of this. You don't need to take notes or stay alert. Just let the words and ideas wash over you like the slow, deep currents of the sea. And as we begin our quiet voyage into the great blue unknown, remember, this video is for educational and relaxation purposes only, and is not intended as medical advice or a substitute for professional treatment. Ready? Let's begin our descent. The long fall, mapping the zones of darkness. Before we can speak of the secrets of the deep, we must first understand what deep truly means. The ocean is not one uniform body of water. It is layered like a great liquid planet with different zones, each with its own character, its own rules, and its own inhabitants. Our journey downward is a journey through these realms, a slow, gentle fall from the world of light into a world of eternal night. Imagine we are in a small, quiet submersible. Its lights off for now. We are floating on the surface, the warm sun on our hull. This is our starting point. The sunlight zone, or epipelagic zone, from the surface down to about 200 meters, 650 feet. This is the ocean we know and love. It's the world of coral reefs, playful dolphins, and schools of shimmering tuna. Sunlight penetrates this entire layer, fueling the vast gardens of phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that form the base of the entire ocean food web through photosynthesis. The water is warm, the pressure is manageable, and life is abundant and familiar. It is a world painted in blues, greens, and the vibrant colors of its inhabitants. We begin our descent, and for the first few minutes, light streams in through our porthole. But as we sink deeper, the world outside begins to change. The bright, shark blue of the surface gives way to a deeper, more royal blue. The light becomes softer, more diffuse. The twilight zone, or mesopelagic zone, from 200 meters down to 1,000 meters, or 3,300 feet. We have now left the world of the sun behind. Some faint, ghostly light still filters down this far, but it is not enough for photosynthesis. The world outside is a perpetual, deep twilight. The temperature drops significantly. The pressure builds. We are now in a world of shadows and silhouettes. The creatures here are different. Many have large, sensitive eyes to capture the last fading photons of light. Others have developed a new trick, a secret language of light we will explore later: bioluminescence. This is the realm of the vampire squid, the hatchetfish, and the lanternfish. Many of the animals in this zone are vertical migrators. By night, they travel up to the richer waters of the sunlight zone to feed, and by day, they retreat back down to the dark, cold safety of the twilight zone to hide from predators. Our submersible continues its slow, steady fall. The last hint of blue in the water outside has faded to a deep, inky gray. And then, as we cross the 1,000-meter mark, it vanishes completely. The midnight zone, or bathopelagic zone, from 1,000 meters down to 4,000 meters, 13,100 feet. We are now in a world of absolute, unending darkness. The only light that will ever exist here is the light that creatures make themselves. The pressure is now immense, and the water temperature is hovering just a few degrees above freezing. Life is much less dense here. Food is scarce, and the creatures that live here are masters of energy conservation. They move slowly, their metabolisms are sluggish, and they wait patiently for a meal to drift down from the world above. This is the home of the iconic anglerfish with her dangling, glowing lure, and the gulper eel with its enormous, unhinging jaw. The bodies of creatures here are often soft, watery, and black or red, colors that are effectively invisible in the absence of light. We are now truly in the deep sea. The abyss, abyssal pelagic zone, from 4,000 meters down to 6,000 meters, or 19,700 feet. The name itself evokes a sense of infinite, featureless emptiness. And in many ways it is. We are now drifting over the vast, flat, muddy plains that cover a huge portion of the Earth's surface. The pressure is crushing, hundreds of times greater than at the surface. The water is near freezing. The darkness is absolute. And yet, there is life here. Strange, pale creatures crawl along the seafloor, feeding on the slow, constant rain of organic matter from above, a phenomenon we will come to know as marine snow. Tripod fish stand on their long, stilt-like fins, waiting for vibrations in the water that signal a nearby meal. The animals are pale, often blind, relying on other senses to navigate their world. It is a slow, quiet, and profoundly alien landscape. The hadal zone, hadal pelagic zone, from 6,000 meters down to the very bottom of the ocean's deepest trenches, nearly 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet. We have reached the final frontier. The hadal zone, named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, exists only in the deep ocean trenches like the Mariana Trench. For a long time, it was thought that life could not possibly exist here. The pressure is over 1,000 times that at the surface, the equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. And yet, as we will discover, life persists. It is not a world of monsters, but of small, incredibly adapted creatures like the ethereal hadal snailfish and swarms of tiny amphipods. These are the deepest living animals on our planet. Our submersible has now reached the sea floor of this final, deepest world. We have passed through layers of fading light, deepening cold, and mounting pressure. We have arrived in the true deep ocean. And it is here, in this crushing, silent darkness, that the most shocking secrets await. The weight of the world. Life under crushing pressure. Let's pause our descent for a moment and consider the single most defining characteristic of the deep ocean. It is not the darkness nor the cold. It is the pressure. It is a force so immense, so relentless, that it shapes everything from the geology of the seafloor to the very cells of the creatures that live there. It is the first and most shocking secret of the deep. How anything can survive under the literal weight of the world. At sea level, we experience the pressure of the atmosphere, the weight of the column of air stretching miles above our heads. We call this one atmosphere of pressure. We don't feel it because we evolved in it. Our bodies push outward with the same force that the air pushes inward. Now, imagine diving into the water. Water is much, much denser than air. For every 10 meters, about 33 feet, you descend, the pressure increases by 1 full atmosphere.
When a scuba diver is at 30 meters, they are experiencing 4 atmospheres of pressure, 1 from the air and 3 from the water. Now let's return to our submersible. As we passed into the midnight zone at 1,000 meters, the pressure was already 100 atmospheres. By the time we reached the abyssal plains at 4,000 meters, it was 400 atmospheres. And down here in the Mariana Trench at nearly 11,000 meters, the pressure is over 1,100 times the pressure at the surface. To put that in perspective, that is a pressure of over 8 tons per square inch. It's the equivalent of 1 person trying to support the weight of 50 jumbo jets. So how can life exist here? If you were to take a submarine built of steel and send it down without proper design, it would be crushed into a ball long before it reached the abyss. If you took a styrofoam cup, it would be compressed to the size of a thimble. So why don't the creatures of the deep implode? The secret is that they are not fighting the pressure from the outside. They have equalized it from the inside. Unlike us, with our air-filled lungs and sinus cavities, deep-sea creatures are mostly water. Their bodies are made of liquids and solids that are largely incompressible. There are no air pockets inside them to collapse. The pressure inside their cells is the same as the pressure outside their bodies, so there is no net force to crush them. They don't feel the pressure any more than we feel the pressure of the air around us. They are one with their environment. This has profound consequences for their biology. Many fish from the upper ocean have an organ called a swim bladder, which is essentially a gas-filled sac they use to control their buoyancy. In the deep sea, such an organ would be a fatal liability. It would be instantly crushed. So deep sea fish have done away with swim bladders entirely. To maintain buoyancy, they have evolved other strategies. Many have watery, gelatinous flesh, which is less dense than the surrounding water. Others have very light, porous bones, or no bones at all. The iconic blobfish, which looks like a sad, gelatinous puddle when brought to the surface, is a perfect example. In its own high-pressure environment, its droopy body is precisely what supports it, giving it near-neutral buoyancy so it can float effortlessly just above the sea floor. But the pressure does more than just shape their bodies. It affects them at the most fundamental molecular level. High pressure can distort the complex, three-dimensional shapes of proteins and enzymes, the molecules that do all the work inside a cell. If these molecules lose their shape, they stop working and the organism dies. It's like trying to use a key that has been bent out of shape. Deep sea organisms have evolved special proteins that are more stable and resistant to this pressure distortion. They also have special molecules in their cells called piezolites. From the Greek word pizein, meaning to press, these small organic molecules like TMAO surround the water molecules inside the cell, essentially protecting the proteins and cell membranes from being squeezed and damaged by the immense pressure.
This is a level of adaptation so profound, it is almost hard to comprehend. These creatures are not just living in a high-pressure environment, they are of it. Their very biochemistry is tuned to it. This is why many deep-sea creatures cannot survive being brought to the surface. The rapid decrease in pressure is just as fatal to them as the rapid increase would be to us. Their cells, adapted to the crushing deep, can literally fall apart in the low pressure of our world. They are aliens on their own planet, perfectly suited to a world that would instantly destroy us, and utterly fragile in the world we call home. The first secret, then, is not that deep-sea creatures are strong enough to resist the pressure, but that they are soft enough, watery enough, and chemically clever enough to have simply surrendered to it, and in doing so, to have mastered it completely. The living light, bioluminescence in the eternal night. We have established our position in the deep, a realm of crushing pressure and near freezing cold. And as we mentioned, it is a realm of absolute physical darkness. Sunlight, the engine of life on Earth, does not reach here. It is a world without a sun, without a moon, without stars. And yet, it is not a world without light. This brings us to one of the most enchanting and widespread secrets of the deep ocean: bioluminescence, the ability of living things to create their own light. In the perpetual night of the abyss, life has learned to glow, to flash, and to sparkle. It is a silent, cold light, a biological fireworks display that illuminates the darkness for moments at a time, for purposes of survival, communication, and deception. On land, bioluminescence is a rarity. We see it in fireflies on a summer evening, or in the faint glow of some fungi on a forest floor. It's a beautiful novelty. In the deep sea, it is not the exception, it is the rule. Scientists estimate that up to 90% of the species living in the twilight and midnight zones are bioluminescent. The darkness is not empty. It is filled with a secret language written in light. How do they do it? This living light is a chemical reaction. It typically involves a molecule called luciferin, which, when it reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase, produces light. It's an incredibly efficient process, releasing almost all its energy as light with very little heat. It is the cold fire of life. The uses of this light are as varied and as ingenious as the creatures themselves. One of the most common uses is for offense, to find and attract prey. This is the strategy of the deep-sea anglerfish.
The female, a globular creature with a fearsome mouth full of needle-like teeth, has a long, fleshy spine protruding from her head. At the tip of the spine is a sac filled with bioluminescent bacteria, which glows like a tiny lantern in the dark. She dangles this lure, wiggling it back and forth, attracting smaller fish and crustaceans who mistake it for a potential meal. When they get close, her enormous jaws snap shut. It is a perfect, deadly trap, a single point of light in an endless darkness that promises food, but delivers oblivion. Bioluminescence is also used for defense. When threatened, many deep-sea creatures can produce a blinding flash of light to startle a predator, giving them a precious moment to escape. The vampire squid, a creature that is neither a vampire nor a squid, has a spectacular defensive display. When threatened, it can pull its webbed arms over its body, creating a dark cloak, and eject a cloud of sticky bioluminescent mucus. This glowing cloud confuses the predator, which attacks the light, while the squid itself, now cloaked in darkness, makes a getaway. It's a smokescreen made of stars. Other animals use a technique called counter-illumination. Creatures in the twilight zone, like the hatchetfish, have light-producing organs called photophores on their undersides. They can adjust the brightness of these lights to match the faint, dappled sunlight filtering down from above. This effectively erases their silhouette, making them invisible to predators looking up from below. It is the ultimate camouflage, using light to hide in a world of shadows. Light is also used for communication. Just as birds use song and color to attract mates, deep sea creatures may use patterns of light for communication. Different species of lanternfish have unique arrangements of photophores on their bodies, like constellations. It is thought that they can recognize their own kind by these light patterns, flashing signals to each other in the dark to find a partner in the vast emptiness. Some shrimp can even spew a jet of bioluminescent fluid, creating a bright cloud to signal to others. The colors of this living light are also finely tuned to the environment. The ocean water is most transparent to blue and green light. Other colors, like red, are absorbed very quickly. For this reason, most bioluminescence in the ocean is blue-green. It's the color that travels farthest, making it ideal for seeing and being seen. However, there are some clever exceptions. The stoplight loose-jaw dragonfish has a shocking secret. In addition to producing blue light, it can also produce red light from a special organ beneath its eye. Most deep-sea creatures cannot see red light. Their eyes are not sensitive to that wavelength. This gives the loose-jaw a tremendous advantage. It can illuminate its prey with a secret, invisible searchlight. The prey is bathed in red light, completely unaware, while the loose-jaw can see it perfectly, a predator with its own private night vision goggles.
Drifting now in our submersible, we can imagine what it would be like if we turned on our own sensitive cameras. We would not see an empty blackness. we would see a cosmos in miniature. Faint, ghostly glows from passing jellyfish, sudden brilliant flashes from startled shrimp, the slow, rhythmic pulse of a distant creature, a shower of sparks from a disturbed comb jelly, its cilia refracting light into shimmering rainbows. The deep is not dark. It is filled with a constant, silent, and secret conversation. A symphony of cold light played out in the greatest wilderness on our planet. It is a world that has learned to make its own stars. A world without sun, chemosynthesis, and hydrothermal vents. For our entire history, humanity has known a fundamental, unshakable truth. All life on Earth depends on the sun. Plants and algae capture sunlight through photosynthesis, and animals eat those plants or eat other animals that eat those plants. The sun is the base of the food chain, the ultimate source of all energy, all life. It is a rule that seems absolute, but in 1977, in the deep, dark Pacific Ocean, scientists in a small submersible named Alvin made a discovery that would shatter this rule forever. It is perhaps the single most shocking secret the deep ocean has ever revealed. They found a world that does not need the sun. The submersible was exploring the Galapagos Rift, a mid-ocean ridge where tectonic plates are pulling apart and magma from the Earth's mantle rises close to the surface. They were expecting to find a cold, barren, and empty seafloor. Instead, their lights illuminated something utterly unbelievable. Out of the volcanic rock, shimmering, superheated water was billowing upwards, looking like plumes of black smoke. And clustered around these vents, in the crushing pressure and total darkness, was a thriving, dense ecosystem, an oasis of life as vibrant as any coral reef. There were giant white clams the size of dinner plates, strange, ghostly crabs, and most bizarrely of all, thickets of giant tube worms, some over 2 meters long, with blood-red plumes swaying gently in the chemical-rich water. This was a world that should not exist. There was no light for photosynthesis. So what was fueling this incredible abundance of life? The answer was a process that scientists had only theorized about before: chemosynthesis. Instead of photosynthesis, which uses light energy, chemosynthesis uses chemical energy. The water gushing from these hydrothermal vents is not just hot, it is a toxic brew, rich in chemicals from deep within the Earth's crust, particularly hydrogen sulfide, the chemical that gives rotten eggs their smell. To us, hydrogen sulfide is a deadly poison,
but to a special kind of bacteria living around these vents, it is food. These chemosynthetic bacteria have evolved the remarkable ability to absorb hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, and carbon dioxide from the water, and through a series of chemical reactions, create organic matter and energy. They are the primary producers of this ecosystem. They are the plants of the deep sea vents, and the entire ecosystem is built upon them. The giant tube worms, for example, have no mouth, no stomach, and no gut. They cannot eat. Instead, their bodies are packed with a special organ filled with these chemosynthetic bacteria. The worm's red plume acts like a gill, absorbing hydrogen sulfide and oxygen from the water and delivering it via its blood to the bacteria living inside it. The bacteria, in turn, create food for the worm. It is a perfect symbiotic relationship. The worm provides the bacteria with a safe home and a steady supply of chemicals, and the bacteria provide the worm with all the nourishment it needs to survive and grow to enormous sizes. Other animals, like the crabs and shrimp, graze directly on mats of these bacteria that coat the rocks, or prey on the animals that do. The vents themselves are extraordinary structures, as the superheated, mineral-rich water, which can reach temperatures of over 400 degrees Celsius or 750 degrees Fahrenheit, hits the near-freezing ocean water. The dissolved minerals instantly precipitate out, solidifying and building up over time to form tall chimney-like structures. These black smokers and white smokers, depending on the mineral content, are the geological heart of these oases. Life clusters around them, basking in the warmth and the chemical nourishment. But these communities are ephemeral. A vent might be active for a few years or a few decades, but eventually the plumbing underground shifts, the flow of hot water stops, and the vent dies. The vibrant community, deprived of its chemical energy source, dies with it, leaving behind a ghost town of empty shells and tubes on the dark sea floor. The larvae of these creatures then must drift through the cold, empty abyss, hoping to find another active vent to colonize. The discovery of hydrothermal vents fundamentally changed our understanding of life on Earth. It proved that life could exist in the most extreme conditions imaginable, in total darkness, under crushing pressure, and fueled by the chemical energy of the Earth itself. It was a second Genesis, a completely separate tree of life with its own rules. This discovery also has profound implications for the search for life elsewhere in the universe. If life can thrive on our own planet without any connection to the sun, then perhaps it could exist in similar environments on other worlds. Perhaps beneath the icy shell of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus, where we believe there are liquid water oceans warmed by tidal forces, there could be hydrothermal vents on their seafloors, fueling ecosystems that have never seen the light of a star. The deep ocean did not just reveal a secret about our planet. It gave us a new blueprint for where to look for life in the cosmos. It taught us that life is not just a product of gentle sunlight and warm ponds, but a tenacious, creative force that can take root in the most unlikely and hellish of gardens.
Other oases, cold seeps, whale falls, and the deep sea buffet. The discovery of hydrothermal vents revealed that life could thrive in the abyss without sunlight, powered by chemicals seeping from the Earth's crust. For a time, it was thought that these fiery oases were the only exceptions to the rule of the sun. But the deep ocean is full of secrets, and as exploration continued, scientists began to find other, stranger and quieter oases of life, each fueled by its own unique source of energy. These discoveries showed that chemosynthesis was not a fluke, but a widespread strategy for life in the dark. One of these discoveries was the cold seep. As the name suggests, these are areas of the seafloor where chemicals, primarily methane and hydrogen sulfide, slowly and gently seep out of the underlying sediments rather than gushing out from superheated vents. The water temperature at a cold seep is the same as the surrounding deep sea, near freezing. But chemically, these are incredibly rich environments. Just like at the hydrothermal vents, chemosynthetic bacteria are the masters of this domain. They form thick, colorful mats on the seafloor, consuming the methane and sulfides and turning them into energy. And just as at the vents, an entire ecosystem grows around them. Cold seep communities can look superficially similar to vent communities with fields of tube worms and clams, but they are different in character. Because the flow of chemicals is slow and steady rather than violent and ephemeral, cold seep communities can be much, much older and larger. Some cold seeps are thought to have been active for thousands of years. This stability allows for the growth of enormous, slow-growing tube worms that can live for centuries, making them some of the longest-lived non-colonial animals on the planet. The clams and mussels at cold seeps also thrive on a symbiotic relationship with bacteria, growing to large sizes and forming dense beds that can cover huge areas of the seafloor. It is a slow, ancient, and stable world, a quiet counterpart to the chaotic, short-lived world of the black smokers.
Then there is perhaps the most poetic and poignant of all deep sea ecosystems, the whale fall. A whale is one of the largest animals on Earth. It lives its life in the sunlight zone, breathing air and feeding on the ocean's bounty. But when it dies, its enormous body, rich in organic matter, sinks. It falls for days, descending through the twilight and midnight zones until it finally comes to rest on the barren, muddy floor of the abyss. For the creatures of the deep, this is a miracle. It is an enormous, unexpected delivery of food and energy, a buffet that can sustain a community of life for decades. The story of a whale fall unfolds in several stages, like a long, slow play. First come the mobile scavengers, creatures like the terrifying-looking but slow-moving hagfish, the slime eels, and large sleeper sharks arrive from miles around, drawn by the scent of the carcass. They burrow into the whale's flesh, feasting on the soft tissues. This stage can last for a year or two, until most of the flesh is gone. Next comes the enrichment opportunist stage. Worms, small crustaceans, and mollusks colonize the bones and the surrounding sediment, which has been enriched by the decomposing flesh. They feed on the remaining scraps and leftovers. But the final and longest stage is the most fascinating. This is the sulfophilic or sulfur-loving stage. The large bones of the whale are rich in lipids or fats. As these fats decompose deep within the bones, anaerobic bacteria produce hydrogen sulfide, the same chemical that fuels the vents and seeps. This sulfide then becomes food for chemosynthetic bacteria, which colonize the surfaces of the bones, forming a thin, pale mat. This, in turn, supports a whole new community of animals, including clams, snails, and worms that feed on the bacteria. A whale skeleton becomes its own miniature chemosynthetic ecosystem. This final stage can last for 50 to 100 years, a long-lasting monument to the life that once swam in the sunlighted waters far above. A single whale fall becomes an island of life, a temporary oasis on the abyssal plain, connecting the world of the sun to the world of chemosynthesis in the most direct and dramatic way possible. It is a beautiful, if melancholy, example of the deep ocean's efficiency, where nothing goes to waste, and even in death, the largest of creatures gives rise to new and abundant life in the deepest, darkest corners of the world. These oases, vents, seeps, and well falls reveal a profound secret. The deep ocean is not a uniform desert. It is a patchwork of barren plains, punctuated by vibrant, thriving, and utterly alien gardens. each one a testament to life's incredible tenacity and its ability to find nourishment in the most unlikely of places. Monsters of the Deep: The Truth About Giants. The human imagination has always populated the deep ocean with monsters. From the Kraken of Norse mythology, a creature so large it could pull entire ships beneath the waves, to the sea serpents that adorned ancient maps, we have long held a fascination with the idea of colossal beasts lurking in the sunless depths. For centuries, these were just stories, sailors' yarns spun on long, lonely voyages. But one of the great surprises of deep-sea exploration is that some of these legends, in a way, turned out to be true. The deep indeed is home to giants, but they are not the malevolent monsters of myth. They are real animals, products of a unique evolutionary pressure, and their lives are far stranger and more mysterious than any legend. The most famous of these real-life sea monsters is the giant squid, Architeuthis dux. For centuries, the only evidence of its existence came from carcasses washed ashore or from the large sucker scars found on the skin of sperm whales, their only known predator. It was a ghost, a creature of immense size that no one had ever seen alive in its natural habitat. It was not until 2004 that a team of Japanese scientists finally captured the first photographs of a live giant squid in the deep. And not until 2012 that the first video was filmed. The footage revealed not a monster, but a magnificent, elusive, and powerful animal. Giant squid are thought to grow up to 13 meters, 43 feet long for females, with the bulk of that length coming from their two long feeding tentacles. They have the largest eyes of any animal on Earth, as big as dinner plates, designed to capture the faintest glimmers of bioluminescent light in the twilight zone where they hunt. Even larger, though perhaps less famous, is the colossal squid, Messineteuthis hamiltoni. Living in the frigid waters around Antarctica, the colossal squid is shorter than the giant squid, but much, much heavier and bulkier. It is the largest invertebrate on the planet. Instead of just suckers, its tentacles are equipped with a terrifying array of sharp, swiveling hooks, some of which are three-pronged. It is a formidable predator, and like the giant squid, its life remains almost a complete mystery to us. We know it exists primarily from specimens found in the stomachs of sperm whales or caught by fishing boats. We know very little about how it hunts, how it reproduces, or how it lives its life in the deep, dark, and cold Southern Ocean. The existence of these squid giants is a result of a phenomenon known as abyssal gigantism. For reasons not fully understood, many types of deep-sea invertebrates and crustaceans tend to grow to much larger sizes than their relatives in shallow waters. We see this in the giant isopod, a creature that looks like a common woodlouse or roly-poly, but can grow to the size of a small dog. We see it in the Japanese spider crab, which has a leg span that can reach nearly 4 meters, 12 feet, the largest of any arthropod. Why does this happen? There are several theories. The intense pressure and extreme cold of the deep sea lead to very slow metabolisms and very long lifespans. These creatures simply have more time to grow. Another idea is that a larger body size is more energy efficient in the cold, and it makes it easier to travel long distances in search of the scarce food on the abyssal plains. However, not everything in the deep is a giant. In fact, many deep-sea fish exhibit the opposite phenomenon, dwarfism. Many of the fish that live in the abyss are actually quite small. This is also an adaptation to the scarcity of food. A smaller body requires less energy to maintain, a crucial advantage when your next meal might be weeks or months away. The deep is a world of extremes, and it drives evolution to extreme solutions. Either get very big to dominate the sparse landscape, or get very small to disappear into it. One of the most shocking secrets related to these monsters is not their size, but their bizarre reproductive strategies, born from the difficulty of finding a mate in the vast, dark emptiness. The deep-sea anglerfish provides the most extreme example. The large, fearsome creature with the glowing lure that we all know is the female. The male, by contrast, is a tiny, pathetic creature, often hundreds of times smaller than her. His sole purpose in life is to find a female. He has a highly developed sense of smell to track her pheromones through the dark water. When he finally finds her, he bites into her side and holds on. His body then begins to physically fuse with hers. His circulatory systems merge with hers. His organs, including his eyes and fins, wither away until he is nothing more than a small appendage on her body, a parasitic sperm bank that she carries with her for the rest of her life, providing her with sperm whenever she is ready to reproduce. It is a strategy of ultimate commitment, a shocking and strangely beautiful solution to the problem of deep-sea dating. The monsters of the deep are real, but their most monstrous and surprising qualities are not their size or their fangs, but the incredible and often bizarre ways they have adapted to survive in the most hostile environment on our planet. The soundscape of silence, listening to the abyss. We often think of the deep ocean as a world of profound silence. It is a realm without wind, without bird song, without the rustle of leaves. The darkness and the immense pressure seem to suggest an equally immense quiet. And while it is true that it is a world without the familiar sounds of the surface, the deep is far from silent. It has its own soundscape, a strange and wonderful symphony of clicks, moans, rumbles, and whispers. Sound, in fact, is the dominant sense in the ocean. Light penetrates only a few hundred meters, but sound can travel for thousands of kilometers through the water, especially in the deep. This brings us to a secret that we cannot see, but only hear: the secret language and the hidden noises of the abyss. One of the key features of the deep ocean is a specific layer known as the SOFAR channel, which stands for Sound Fixing and Ranging Channel. It's also sometimes called the Deep Sound Channel. This layer, typically found at a depth of around 1,000 meters, has a unique combination of temperature and pressure that creates a conduit for sound. Sound waves that enter this channel can become trapped, traveling horizontally for enormous distances with very little loss of energy. A sound produced in the SOFAR channel could, in theory, be heard halfway around the world by a sensitive enough receiver. This channel is the ocean's superhighway for sound, and many marine animals, particularly large whales, have learned to exploit it.
The most famous and haunting sounds of the deep are the songs of whales. The complex, melodic, and soul-stirring songs of the humpback whale are well known. But in the deep, it is the low-frequency calls of the great baleen whales, like the blue whale and the fin whale, that dominate. A blue whale, the largest animal on Earth, can produce sounds at a frequency far below the range of human hearing. These infrasonic moans are the loudest sounds produced by any animal, and they can travel for thousands of kilometers through the SOFAR channel. Scientists believe these long-distance calls are used for communication, for navigation, and for finding mates across vast oceanic basins. Imagine two whales, one off the coast of California and another near Hawaii, holding a conversation in a language of deep, resonant vibrations that we can only detect with our most sensitive instruments. It is a global communication network, hidden beneath the waves. But the abyss also holds sounds that are much more mysterious. In 1997, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, recorded a bizarre and extremely powerful ultra-low frequency sound on its underwater listening arrays in the Pacific Ocean. The sound, nicknamed the bloop, was unlike anything heard before. It was louder than any known animal sound, including that of a blue whale, and it had a unique profile that suggested an organic origin. For years, the bloop was one of the great unsolved mysteries of the deep. Was it a colossal, unknown sea creature? The sound was detected by sensors over 5,000 kilometers apart, suggesting a source of immense power. The secret was finally revealed in 2005. The sound was not a monster, but the sound of a massive ice quake, a huge iceberg cracking and breaking away from a glacier in Antarctica. It was a sound of geology, not biology, a reminder that the planet itself has a voice in the deep. The earth is constantly speaking in the abyss. The slow, deep rumble of underwater earthquakes and the violent roar of submarine volcanoes are a constant part of the soundscape. These are the sounds of the Earth's crust being born and destroyed along the mid-ocean ridges. There is also the quiet, crackling sound of gas bubbles escaping from methane seeps, and the hiss of superheated water erupting from hydrothermal vents. It is the sound of the planet's inner workings, a geothermal symphony played out on the seafloor. Even the life in the deep contributes to the noise in ways we are just beginning to understand. The clicks and whistles of sperm whales as they hunt for giant squid in the darkness are a form of echolocation, a biological sonar they use to see with sound. There is also the collective sound of trillions of tiny creatures like shrimp that can create a constant sizzling hiss in the water, the sound of life itself. The deep ocean is not silent. It is a rich, complex, and dynamic acoustic environment. It is filled with the songs of giants, the rumbles of a living planet, and the whispers of mysterious, unidentified sounds that continue to puzzle scientists. To understand the deep, we must not only look, but also listen. We must tune our ears to a frequency that speaks of immense distances, incredible pressures, and the slow, deep heartbeat of the ocean itself. The seafloor, a landscape of extremes. When we picture the bottom of the ocean, we often imagine a vast, monotonous, and unchanging landscape, a flat, muddy plain stretching from one continent to another, a featureless desert under a world of water. And it is true that these abyssal plains are the most common landform on our planet, covering more than 50% of the Earth's surface. They are among the flattest, smoothest places on Earth, covered in a thick blanket of fine-grained sediment that has slowly settled from the waters above over millions of years. But to think of the seafloor only as mud would be to miss one of the deep's most profound secrets. The bottom of the ocean is home to the most dramatic, the most extensive, and the most geologically active landscapes on our planet. It is a world of towering mountains, vast canyons, and trenches so deep they could swallow Mount Everest whole. Rising from the abyssal plains are seamounts. These are underwater mountains, almost always volcanic in origin, that rise from the seafloor but do not break the surface of the water. There are estimated to be over 100,000 seamounts over 1,000 meters high in the world's oceans, making them one of the most common habitats on Earth. These mountains are far from being barren rock. They are islands of biodiversity in the deep. As deep sea currents flow past a seamount, they create upwellings, bringing nutrient-rich water from the depths up towards the sunlight zone, which can support plankton blooms. This, in turn, attracts fish and other animals. The hard, rocky surfaces of the seamounts also provide a place for corals and sponges to attach, creating complex three-dimensional habitats. These deep-sea coral gardens are not the colorful, sun-loving corals of the tropics. They are slow-growing, ancient organisms, some of which are thousands of years old, that thrive in the cold, dark water, filtering tiny food particles from the passing currents. A single seamount can be a bustling city of life, a vital hotspot in the otherwise sparsely populated abyss. Running down the center of our planet, like a seam on a baseball, is the mid-ocean ridge system. This is the longest and most extensive mountain range on Earth, stretching for over 65,000 kilometers, 40,000 miles around the globe, almost entirely underwater. This is where the Earth's tectonic plates are pulling apart, and new oceanic crust is being formed as magma from the mantle rises to fill the gap. This is the birthplace of the seafloor. The landscape here is rugged, volcanic, and incredibly active. It is a world of jagged peaks, deep valleys, and, as we have seen, the hydrothermal vents that support some of the strangest life on our planet. It is a place of constant creation, the geological engine room of the Earth, hidden from our view beneath kilometers of water. The seafloor is also carved by immense canyons. Submarine canyons can be as large and as dramatic as the Grand Canyon on land. Many of them were carved by ancient rivers during ice ages when the sea level was lower. Others are carved by a powerful underwater phenomenon known as turbidity currents. These are essentially underwater avalanches of sediment and water that can flow down the continental slope at incredible speeds, scouring out deep canyons in the seafloor as they go. These canyons act as funnels, channeling organic matter from the shallower continental shelves down into the deep sea, making them rich feeding grounds for deep sea life. And then there are the deepest parts of our planet, the oceanic trenches. These are long, narrow, and incredibly deep depressions in the seafloor. They are formed at subduction zones, where one tectonic plate is being forced to slide beneath another, plunging back down into the Earth's mantle. The most famous of these is the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. Its deepest point, the Challenger Deep, lies nearly 11,000 meters, almost 7 miles below the surface. This is the hadal zone, the final frontier of the deep. It is a world of
unbelievable pressure and complete darkness. For a long time, it was considered a dead zone. But as we will see, even here in the most extreme and inaccessible environment on Earth, life has found a way to endure. The secret of the seafloor is its hidden majesty. It is not a static, muddy wasteland. It is a dynamic and diverse world, a hidden continent with a geography far more grand and extreme than anything we see on land. It is the foundation of the deep, shaping the currents, the chemistry, and the very nature of the life that calls it home. The final frontier, life in the hadal trenches. We have reached the bottom, not just the bottom of the abyssal plains, but the bottom of the bottom. We are in the hadal zone, the realm of the deep ocean trenches. These trenches make up less than 1% of the ocean floor, but they represent nearly half of its total depth range. They are the deepest, most remote, and hostile environments on our planet. To be here is to be more isolated from the world of the surface than an astronaut on the International Space Station. The pressure is over 1,000 atmospheres. The temperature is just above freezing, and there is no light, no sound, and seemingly no hope of life. For decades, the prevailing scientific view, known as the azoic hypothesis, held that life simply could not exist below a certain depth. The hadal zone was thought to be a sterile, lifeless void. But the ocean holds its secrets close, and the greatest secret of the trenches is that they are not dead. They are, in fact, teeming with life. The first hints of this came in 1960 when the bathyscaphe Trieste made the first crewed descent to the bottom of the Challenger Deep. The two men aboard, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh, peered out of their tiny porthole and in the beam of their lights saw a small flatfish-like creature swimming by. This observation was controversial and has since been debated, but it cracked open the door to the possibility of life in the deepest sea. In the decades since, with the help of uncrewed, remotely operated vehicles or ROVs and autonomous landers, we have confirmed that the hadal zone is home to a unique and surprisingly abundant community of animals. So what lives here at the bottom of the world? The dominant creatures are not giant monsters, but small, humble, and incredibly resilient animals. The most abundant are amphipods, a type of crustacean that looks like a large pale shrimp or flea. In the trenches, these amphipods can swarm in huge numbers, attracted to any bait that landers carry down. They are the primary scavengers of the hadal ecosystem, voraciously consuming any food that falls from above. Some species of hadal amphipods exhibit giantism, growing to over 30 centimeters, a foot in length, true giants of their kind. They have evolved bodies rich in aluminum, which helps to reinforce their shells against the crushing pressure. And then there is the undisputed king of the hadal food chain, the hadal snailfish. These are small, tadpole-shaped fish with soft, gelatinous, and completely scaleless bodies. They are pale, almost ethereal, with tiny, underdeveloped eyes. They don't look like much, but they are the deepest living fish on the planet, having been filmed swimming peacefully at depths of over 8,200 meters, over 5 miles below the surface. Their secret to survival is chemical. Their bodies are filled with the piezolyte TMAO, the same molecule that protects the proteins of other deep-sea creatures. Hadal snailfish have the highest concentrations of TMAO ever measured in any animal, allowing their cells to function perfectly under pressures that would turn the cells of any other fish to mush. They are the ultimate masters of high-pressure biochemistry. The trenches are not just deep. They are shaped like funnels. This unique geography plays a crucial role in supporting life. The steep V-shaped walls of the trenches act as a trap, funneling organic matter, the marine snow, and the carcasses of larger animals that drifts down from the abyss above. This means that the floor of a trench can actually be a richer source of food than the abyssal plains just outside it. The trenches are oases of nourishment in the deepest sea. They also seem to be hotspots for microbial life. The sediments on the trench floors are filled with bacteria that play a key role in processing the organic matter that arrives. Some scientists have even found evidence of chemosynthetic communities in the trenches, suggesting that chemical seeps from tectonic activity might be another source of energy for this isolated world. Life in the hadal zone is a testament to the sheer tenacity of life itself. It has adapted not just to the pressure and the cold, but also to the unique geology and the isolation of these deep world islands. Each trench is like an isolated valley, and the species found in one trench are often different from the species found in another. They are unique ecosystems with their own evolutionary histories, evolving in near total isolation from the rest of the planet for millions of years. The shocking secret of the hadal zone is not just that life exists there, but that it thrives. It is a world that was once thought to be a biological desert, but has revealed itself to be a hidden garden, a final triumphant outpost of life in the most extreme environment our planet has to offer. The ocean's memory, marine snow, and the slow tick of time. Throughout our journey into the deep, we have spoken of the scarcity of food and the reliance of deep-sea creatures on whatever falls from the world of light far above.
This connection between the surface and the deep is one of the most fundamental and beautiful processes in the entire ocean. It is a constant, gentle, and almost invisible phenomenon known as marine snow. It is not snow in the way we think of it, but a continuous, slow-motion blizzard of organic matter, drifting down from the sunlit upper layers of the ocean to the abyssal floor. It is the foundation of the deep-sea food web, and it is the memory of the ocean, written in dust. What is this snow made of? It is a mix of all the leftovers of life from the world above. It includes the dead bodies of tiny phytoplankton and zooplankton, the shed exoskeletons of small crustaceans, fecal pellets from larger animals, and clumps of mucus. As these individual particles sink, they tend to clump together, forming larger snowflake-like aggregates that can be several centimeters across. This is marine snow. It falls slowly, patiently, taking weeks or even months to complete its long journey from the surface to the abyssal floor. For the creatures of the midwater, the twilight and midnight zones, this slow rain is a constant source of food. Many animals, from tiny copepods to the bizarre vampire squid, have adapted to feed on it. Some are filter feeders, capturing the passing flakes. Others, like the vampire squid, use long, sticky filaments to catch the snow as it drifts by. The journey of marine snow is a perilous one. It is estimated that over 90% of the organic matter that starts sinking from the surface is consumed, decomposed, and recycled in the upper 1,000 meters of the ocean. Only a tiny fraction, the last few crumbs from the great feast at the surface, makes it all the way down to the abyssal sea floor. But for the creatures of the abyss, this tiny fraction is everything. It is their manna from heaven. The pale, slow-moving animals that crawl across the muddy plains, the sea cucumbers, brittle stars, and tripod fish are all dependent on this gentle, nutrient-rich snowfall. They are the bottom feeders of the entire planet, patiently sifting through the mud to find the microscopic particles of life that have completed the long fall. This process also plays a crucial role in regulating our planet's climate. The phytoplankton at the surface absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. When they die and sink as marine snow, they carry that carbon with them down into the deep ocean. This process, known as the biological carbon pump, effectively removes vast amounts of carbon from the atmosphere and sequesters it in the deep sea for hundreds or thousands of years. The deep ocean is the world's largest long-term carbon storage reservoir, and the gentle, silent fall of marine snow is the engine that drives it. But marine snow is more than just food and a climate regulator. It is the ocean's memory. The sediment on the abyssal seafloor is built up layer by painstaking layer from the continuous accumulation of marine snow and the fine-grained dust and clay that is carried by currents. This sediment is a historical archive. Trapped within its layers are the tiny, hard shells of microscopic organisms like foraminifera and coccolithophores. The chemical composition of these shells records the temperature and chemistry of the ocean water at the time they were alive. By drilling deep into the seafloor and extracting long cores of this sediment, scientists can read these layers like the pages of a history book. They can reconstruct the Earth's climate going back millions of years. They can see the cycles of ice ages, the shifts in ocean currents, and the evidence of past mass extinctions. The slow, steady tick of time is recorded in the mud of the abyss. The secrets of our planet's past are buried there, written in a language of dust and shells, carried down from the world of light by the silent, patient blizzard of marine snow. It is a profound connection. The life and death of a microscopic plant at the surface, a life that lasts only a few days, can, after its long fall, become a permanent record, a single letter in the great historical novel of our planet, preserved for millions of years in the cold, dark, and timeless library of the deep seafloor. It is a secret that reminds us that everything is connected, that the smallest of lives can tell the grandest of stories, and that the past is never truly lost, but simply buried, waiting quietly in the dark to be read. Conclusion: the unseen majority. Our long, slow descent is nearing its end. We have journeyed from the sunlit surface to the deepest trenches on Earth. We have witnessed a world of crushing pressure, a world lit only by the cold fire of living creatures. We have discovered oases of life that thrive on the chemical energy of the Earth itself, completely divorced from the power of the sun. We have met the real-life giants of the abyss and learned of their strange and wonderful adaptations. We have listened to the soundscape of the deep, a symphony of whale song and planetary rumbles. We have mapped the hidden continent on the seafloor and stood at the edge of the final frontier in the hadal zone. And we have learned how the gentle, constant rain of marine snow connects all these worlds and writes the history of our planet in the mud of the abyss. The deep ocean is the largest single habitat for life on Earth. It makes up over 95% of the planet's biosphere, the space where life can exist. And yet, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the floor of our own ocean. It is the realm of the unseen majority, a world of secrets that we are only just beginning to uncover. The greatest and most shocking secret of the deep ocean may be this: that in the 21st century, in a world that feels so thoroughly mapped, measured, and known, there is still a vast and genuine wilderness right here on our own planet. A place where every dive, every mission with a new submersible or ROV has the potential to discover a new species, a new ecosystem,
a new geological feature, a place where fundamental discoveries that rewrite our textbooks are still being made. We began this journey by calling the deep a world of monsters. And while there are no krakens or sea serpents, we have found that the truth is far stranger and more wonderful than any myth. The real monsters are the extremes, the monstrous pressure, the monstrous cold, the monstrous darkness. And the true marvel is the life that has, against all odds, adapted to these monstrous conditions with grace, ingenuity, and a strange alien beauty. The deep ocean teaches us about the incredible tenacity and creativity of life. It shows us that the rules we take for granted on the surface are not the only rules. It opens our minds to the possibility of life in other equally hostile environments in the universe. And yet, this hidden world is not immune to our influence. The plastics we discard, the pollutants that run into the sea, and the carbon dioxide that is warming the planet and acidifying the water, all of these eventually find their way down into the deep. Even in the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, scientists have found microplastics and man-made chemical contaminants. This remote alien world is inextricably connected to our own. Its secrets are our secrets, and its health is our health. As our submersible begins its long, slow ascent back to the world of light, let the wonder of this hidden realm settle in your mind. Picture the ghostly glow of a lanternfish, the silent sway of a giant tube worm, the patient fall of marine snow. Feel the immense, quiet weight of all that water. The deep ocean is not a place to be feared. It is a place of profound mystery and beauty, a vital part of our planet's living system. It is a reminder that there are always new frontiers to explore, new secrets to uncover, and that the greatest wonders are sometimes hidden right beneath our feet, waiting patiently in the dark to be read. I hope this quiet journey has brought you a sense of peace and a renewed sense of awe for our incredible planet. And if you are still awake, just barely, I hope you feel a connection to that vast, dark, and beautiful world that makes up most of our home. It is there tonight and every night, moving to its own slow, deep rhythms, holding the secrets of our planet's past and the keys to its future. Whether we are awake or asleep, the heart of the ocean beats on, steady, silent, and deep. May your rest be just as peaceful.